A judge has ordered Google to turn over 1 year of data on Jussie Smollett to the state special prosecutor. This is both interesting and phenomenally terrifying at the same time. Viva Frei, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber, and this is the latest. See, now I have to think about blinking, because somebody said I don't blink in the videos, and now I have to think about actually blinking so that it looks natural, but now I'm thinking about when I'm blinking.
Whoever said that, you have poisoned my mind.
Moving on. This is the latest installment of the Jussie Smollett legal saga. A judge has ordered Google to turn over to the special prosecutor a year's worth of Google data on Jussie Smollett. Now, what will probably make this so confusing for the general public is the fact that there are so many parallel proceedings going on at the same time.
Parallel proceedings going on at the same time?
You have the city of Chicago suing Jussie Smollett civilly under the False Statements Ordinance and the Cost Recovery Ordinance. You have Jussie Smollett counterclaiming against the city for malicious prosecution. Lest we forget, you have the Osundairo brothers suing Jussie Smollett's attorneys personally for defamation. And in the backdrop of all of this, you have Special Prosecutor Dan Webb, who was appointed by a judge to reopen the investigation into Jussie Smollett and to some extent Kim Foxx to see what was done in the context of this matter. And in the backdrop of all of this, we still have the FBI investigation into those letters with white powder that Jussie Smollett allegedly sent himself. So when people read that a judge just ordered Google to turn over 1 year of data to the special prosecutor, they have to position that information in the proper channel of this judicial saga. And it's also a perfect opportunity to do an update on all of the other judicial sagas that are running parallel to this one. But before we do that, later today I am going to a local radio station to pitch as an idea for a morning or afternoon radio show my vlog as an idea, as a concept. Longer form call-in talk radio where we actually go into detail on subjects that matter. And the major leverage that I have is bringing in new listeners and broadening their audience. So if everyone would give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment in the comment section below, share it with somebody so that I can walk into that radio station and say,
look at how many people watch my YouTube channel.
I can bring all these people to your radio station. And in French, we call that bon dol, B-O-N-D-O-L, which is sort of known as good exaggeration. There is minimal chance that I can bring over all 140,000 of my subs to the radio station, but I can certainly bring over some to increase their audience base and give them a little added value. All right, back to this Smollett Google story, but before we do that, just an update on the two other pending issues. When it comes to the Jussie Smollett saga, I don't think I can bring myself to give another summary of the facts. I'm going to take for granted that you all know what's going on.
But just in case that you don't.
Jussie Smollett claimed to have been the victim of a homophobic and racist hate crime. After weeks of investigation, it turned out that Jussie Smollett allegedly perpetrated the hate crime on himself. He enlisted the help of two brothers, Olabinjo and Abimbola Osundairo, and he allegedly paid those two brothers to perpetrate the racist and homophobic hate crime on himself. Jussie Smollett was indicted on a number of bases, one of which involved filing a false police report. What? She knows what's going on in this story. She's been hearing about it for 6 months. And just like that, the state prosecutor, Kim Foxx, dropped all charges against Jussie Smollett in exchange for forfeiture of a $10,000 bond.
No.
True. Jussie Smollett came out continuing to proclaim his innocence. His attorneys went public and doubled down on the accusations that the Osundairo brothers in fact perpetrated the racist and homophobic hate crime. Smollett's attorneys even publicly stated that one of the Osundairo brothers was having a homosexual relationship with Jussie Smollett. That particular statement is very relevant for the Osundairo brothers' claim for defamation. Indeed, the Osundairo brothers come from Nigeria, and apparently in Nigeria, homosexuality is illegal. So these public statements made by Smollett's attorneys could have very serious real-world impacts on the Osundairo brothers. The Osundairo brothers sued Smollett's attorneys personally, which is very rare to happen in the practice of law. I did a vlog on that explaining the whole situation. I'll link it right here in case you haven't seen it. And that lawsuit pretty much fell off the map. Ultimately, very little has actually happened in the context of that lawsuit. In September, the parties filed a status report for a reassigned case. And that is basically just a joint document giving the judge an update on the status of the file. Section B state the basis for federal jurisdiction. The parties basically explain why the federal court is the proper jurisdiction. Diversity jurisdiction. Diversity jurisdiction is the concept in law that when the amount claimed exceeds $75,000 and the parties to the suit all come from different states, that the federal court has proper jurisdiction. In July 2019, the defendants filed a motion to dismiss under Rule 12b-6 and Rule 12b-2. August 23rd, 2019, plaintiffs filed responses to defendants' motion to dismiss, and all those motions remain pending and unresolved. Particularly interesting on page 3 of the status report. No discovery has been taken or set. It's very interesting. It's almost as if this entire lawsuit has been shelved, and there might actually be a very good reason for that. It's conceivable that we might first have to see what the outcome is of the city of Chicago's lawsuit against Jussie Smollett. It's conceivable that we might first have to see what the outcome is on Jussie Smollett's counterclaim for malicious prosecution. I mean, in theory, we can envision a situation as unlikely as it would be be in fact where Jussie Smollett in theory succeeds on his counterclaim for malicious prosecution. If it turns out that Jussie Smollett was telling the truth all along, well, that will certainly have an impact on the Osundara brothers' claim against Smollett's attorneys for defamation. Always bearing in mind that in order to succeed on a claim for defamation, the public statements that were made have to be false. So if by some chance it turns out that Jussie Smollett is in fact telling the truth and that the Osundara brothers did in fact perpetrate this crime, if there were to be a parallel judgment that came to the conclusion that the Osundara brothers succeeded on their claim for defamation, you would have two mutually incompatible judgments. So it is conceivable that the Osundara brothers' defamation lawsuit is going to have to sit on a shelf until we have an outcome in the city of Chicago's lawsuit against Smollett and Smollett's counterclaim against Chicago. All that to say that setting aside the motions to dismiss, which seem to be par for the course in all lawsuits, the Osundara brothers' defamation claim hasn't moved at all. In the city of Chicago's lawsuit against Smollett and Smollett's counterclaim, the city of Chicago has filed a motion to dismiss of Jussie Smollett's counterclaim. The city defendants motion to dismiss Jussie Smollett's counterclaims. Now comes counterclaim defendants Eddie Johnson, Edward Wodnicki, Michael Theus, and John and Jane Doe defendants 1 through 10. And the city of Chicago, collectively the city defendants, by and through undersigned counsel to move this court for an order dismissing counterclaim plaintiff Jussie Smollett counterclaim pursuant to Federal Rules of Civil Procedure 12b-6. In support of this motion, the city defendants state as follows. Smollett alleges 2 malicious prosecution counterclaims. In count 1, Smollett alleges a state law malicious prosecution claim. In count 2, Smollett alleges a claim for malicious prosecution under 42 U.S.C. 1983. The court should dismiss count 1 under Rule 12.6b because Smollett has failed to allege the elements of a malicious prosecution claim. Specifically, Smollett's claim fails because 1, he cannot plausibly allege that the criminal proceedings against him terminated in his favor. 2, his own allegations demonstrate the existence of probable cause. And 3, he failed to sufficiently allege that the city defendants acted with malice. Paragraph 3, the court should dismiss count 2 under Rule 12b-6 because Smollett has failed to identify the constitutional amendment underlying his claim. Even if Smollett had properly alleged a constitutional claim for malicious prosecution, his claim would still fail because he failed to allege lack of probable cause or a favorable termination of his criminal proceedings. Wherefore, and for the reasons stated in the city defendant's memorandum in support of its Rule 12b-6 motion to dismiss, the court should dismiss Smollett's counterclaims in their entirety with prejudice and enter any other relief that the court deems fair and just. Dated December 16th, 2019. And apparently from the court records, Smollett's opposition to the city's motion to dismiss Smollett's counterclaim is due on January 15th, 2020. The city of Chicago's reply brief is due on January 22nd, 2020, and the hearing dates have been set for February 18th and March 4th, 2020. And rest assured, when there is a judgment on the city of Chicago's motion to dismiss of Jussie Smollett's counterclaim for malicious prosecution, you will be the first to know, and I will be the first to say. Maybe I won't be the first, but I'll be among the first to say. Which brings us full circle to the most recent court order ordering Google to turn over to the state prosecutor 1 year of data on Jussie Smollett. 1 year of data, including search history, photos. Think about what Google has on the ordinary person. It's mind-blowing and terrifying. Google pretty much has more information on you than you have on yourself. Google pretty much knows not only everything about you, where you've been, who your friends are, who you text, what your heart rate is, what your sleep patterns are, but Google can probably predict things more accurately for you than you could predict for yourself. So just imagine the trove of data that Google has on Jussie Smollett over the last year. Just imagine the trove of data that they have on pretty much anybody and everybody. And imagine that a court can order them to turn this data over to an interested petitioning party. It can be to a special prosecutor in the context of an investigation, as is the case with Jussie Smollett. It can be to any party that petitions the court with reasonable cause and justification for communication of that information. Now, all the headlines read that Google is ordered to turn over 1 year of data as though they were like fighting it tooth and nail. I can tell you that from the practice of law, Google probably really doesn't care all that much. I doubt very much that Google fought tooth and nail to oppose the request. Legally speaking, they just need to be able to fall back on a court order ordering them to do it because they can't do it voluntarily without an order of the court. Google has certain privacy obligations towards its users, so it can't just turn over all that data because somebody's asking for it. But if they get an order of the court enjoining them to communicate that information, they can just wash their hands and say, look, we can't oppose this court order, we don't want to be held in contempt, so we are complying with the court order. It's pretty much the same situation for phone records. I was involved in a lawsuit where the plaintiffs, unbeknownst to the defendants, had made an ex parte motion to the court to obtain all the phone records of the defendants. Ex parte means that the motion was presented without the defendants being there and without notifying the defendants, because in theory, if one were to notify the defendants, they could do something to frustrate the object of the motion. They could wipe hard drives, smash cell phones, so the plaintiff will petition the court and say, this is why we cannot notify the defendants of this motion and it needs to be granted ex parte. If and when the motion is granted and the plaintiffs get the information information they're looking for, defendants can do whatever they want to their hard drives, phones, etc., but the plaintiffs will already have the information in hand. And ultimately, phone carriers don't really care about communicating the information, they just won't do it without a court order enjoining them to do so. So while this is fascinating in law, it is frightening in life. And it goes back to that whole philosophy, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to worry about. Well, you may not have anything to hide or worry about today,
But things change and laws change.
while you may think you have nothing to hide or nothing to worry about, imagine a situation where, hypothetically, the taxing authorities say you owe them money. They petition the court to have Google ordered to turn over to them all of your data over the last year. Passwords, bank account information, and they proceed to seize all of your assets. So just imagine how easily any individual can be entirely crushed by anybody who holds this power. Most people have never actually stopped to fully reflect on how much information Google has on them. Others probably have and just shut down because it's so terrifying. And others fully appreciate it and live knowing the risk that we live at the whim of those who might abuse of the system. But by the looks of it, unless something changes, the special prosecutor is going to get a year of Google data on Jussie Smollett. And this is a dilemma that Jussie Smollett cannot even elect to get out of at this point. Parties can settle civil suits, but once there's an investigation, it is in the hands of the prosecutor. Now, just as a matter of pure logistics, I'm dying to know how Google is going to compile this data in a usable form for the special prosecutor. Imagine the volume of information that is going to be coming in. And you know what? The more I think about it, I'm actually genuinely curious. If anybody knows the answer as to how this information can be compiled so that it can be searchable and usable, let me know in the comment section below. But the information is coming in, and I suspect the information is going to be damning to say the least, and probably not just for Jussie Smollett. Follow-up vlogs will be sure to come. If you like this content, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, drop a comment in the comment section below, and share my channel. If you want to support the channel, there's a PayPal link, merch links in the pinned comment, and now you know your vlog. Peace out. Booyah!